asked you what you wanted, and you told me this bird. You
Oh,
already know
that's
what bird it
right.
is.
I
All right.
recommended
Uh,
this one.
I'm gonna scoot down here. Why don't you come on over here? Why don't you come on over here?
Okay.
I'm gonna hang out over here. Rodney's gonna hang over here. All right. Well, this is a bird that many people may think is fictional because there's a lot of legend and lore behind this bird. It is a fantastical, mystical bird that has inspired many wonderful legends throughout history. And this is a bird that Vesper recommended. Today's bird of the day is the resplendent Quetzal. Look at that resplendent bird. So resplendent. It's
Whoa.
so beautiful. So wonderful. They're awesome, awesome little birds. Well, actually, they're not that little. So, well, the resplendent Quetzal. It's kind of interesting. So it's like we measure birds from beak to tail. And so that way, this bird is a 40 to 42 inch long bird, which would be like, holy crap, that's a big bird. That's like goose sized. But they're not. They're not goose sized because these guys have one of the longest tails to body size ratios of like any bird. Like ridiculous. Their body can be like 14 to 16 inches long, but their tail is about on average 26 inches long. But there's been some of them that have had tails that are over a meter long. Like that's some hardcore tail work right there. That's amazing. That's amazing. Named
Well, I
after
gotta
Quetzalcoatl.
say,
Oh, we're gonna get to that, Blue Lines. We're gonna get to that. So yeah, their wingspan is like only 15 to 16 inches long, which a bird that's 40 to 42 inches long with a 15 to 16 inch wingspan, like that's one of the worst ratios ever. But it's because of that ridiculously long tail. Like 15 to 16 inches for a 14 to 16 inch bird, that sounds about right. But for a 42 inch bird, oh, this is. I mean, look at that tail. Look at this picture. Like the bird ends three-quarters up on the picture, but the tail goes all the way down pretty much to the bottom. It's so long. Now, you may look at this bird and be like, oh, is that a type of parrot? Because they do have a lot of looks kind of similar to parrot, but they're not a parrot. They're in a order called Trigoniformes, which there's not a lot of birds in that. And the family Trigonidae is actually all Quetzals. There's actually 6 different species of Quetzal. But we're talking about the resplendent one today because that's the one that's most common and has the most like folklore around it. And as you can see, they are pretty much a Central American bird. So they're going to be there in those countries like Honduras, Guatemala, southern bits of Mexico, into Panama, all those lovely countries down there in those little green spots that you can see. And you're like, why aren't they in the holes of those areas? Well, they really like to be in those jungly areas where you can really get a lot of trees, lots of shrubbery. That's what they like.
well,
Okay.
I think the reason I like this one the best is because it's got two of my favorite colors, teal and red.
Ah, yes, the colors absolutely beautiful. Yeah, well, their feathers have a bit of iridescence in them, and so their green feathers can appear anywhere from like the blue to green spectrum, depending on just how the light is hitting and reflecting off of it. So like you could be looking at one of these, and you could like do a 360 walk around it, and you could like watch it magically change color. So yeah, their feathers are not pigmented; they are like it's iridescence that gives them their color, and yeah, the bright red on the chest, just gorgeous, gorgeous birds. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, when these little birds want to make more little birds, they tend to pick the tallest trees that they can find, and they, especially ones that have little hollowed out areas in them, because they like to nest in the little tree hollows and other like little crevices they can find, and they're gonna make a nice little soft nest there, and you're gonna have 1 to 3 eggs, almost usually just 2, but then they only do that once per season. And it's kind of neat when they're in their little hole in their crevice. they tuck their tail, but then they use their tail to cover the hole so that it kind of just blends in with the other greenery and shrubbery and is less noticeable to predators. Pretty smart. Plus, also, where else are you going to put that tail when you're in there? No, not a lot of room for it. Now, these little guys, they're going to be monogamous for a single season. So they're going to find a mate, and then the mating pair is going to stick together for pretty much the entire season. But then next year, they're going to find another partner. I mean, sometimes they'll do the same ones, but this ain't a mate for life kind of thing. Now, interesting thing is, like, you know, feathers molt. And so they're going to be constantly growing new feathers, but they find that the males in particular will grow much longer tail feathers in the time where they're trying to lure a lady. These guys aren't the greatest singers. They don't do a lot of great aeronautic acrobatic work. So really what makes them stand out to the ladies is having that long, resplendent tail. It's all about having the ladies want the guys with the best feathers and the best colors and the coolest looking thing. That's at least as far as the ornithology study can gather. But after the eggs are laid, both parents are going to take turns incubating. So, like, mommy's hungry, so daddy's going to incubate. Daddy's hungry, so mommy's going to incubate. And they switch back and forth. And then once the babies are born, both parents are going to bring food to the little baby chicks. So I always like to see that. I always like to see dads that are not deadbeats in the bird kingdom. Nice to have dads helping out, because, you know, some bird dads are kind of deadbeats. Don't get me started on the hummingbirds. They're just like, oh, I fertilized your eggs? Bye! God, stupid hummingbirds. No, not these dads. These good dads. Although I still think penguin dads might be the best dads. They do, like, all the work. All right. So, yeah, but the rest of the year, once the mating's done, once the chicks have fledged and they're gone, then they usually live kind of solitary. They're not big flock birds. They don't do any migrating or anything like that, so they usually just kind of get their own little territory and, you know, find a little grove where they eat and enjoy the tasty foods. Now, one thing you may be wondering is, like, that long tail, that seems like it would kind of get in the way and might hinder flying. And it absolutely does. These guys are not good flyers. They're very, very poor flyers. So, like, when they fly, it's usually going to be just, like, quick hop from one tree to another, or if they're on the ground, to just get up into a tree. But they're not going to be doing any distance flying, and they don't have any real great, you know, like I said, they're not acrobatic in the slightest, because that tail gets in the way. It's one of those things where the tail is all about looking good for the ladies, and doesn't help them out whatsoever in terms of survivability. But, you know, they live in these pretty thick jungle forests. They blend in with the trees a lot, so, you know, they've got natural defenses, but being able to fly away is not necessarily one of them. Plus, they don't have a lot of natural predators. That helps them out a lot. But, unfortunately, there is one predator that they have that is, well, actually causing them to be pretty endangered, and that predator is, of course, human beings. Because their feathers are so spectacular and so long and so wonderful, they are hunted for their feathers. And it's actually causing quite a problem. There's not a whole lot of them left, and the countries are doing a lot of work to try and protect them. And everywhere where they live, it is highly illegal to hunt and kill a Quetzal. But that doesn't stop some poachers. Stupid poachers. But, you know,
humans.
Stupid humans. But then, you know, not just hunting is a big threat, but habitat loss, you know. Climate change and deforestation and all that kind of stuff, that's cutting down on the territories where they can live, and that's the biggest threat to them. Like I said, they're protected, and there's a lot of, you know, work making them protected, but they're not doing so well. Well, and another issue that they're having with keeping their numbers up is that Quetzals do not do well in captivity. Unlike a parrot, they need, like, if you're going to keep one alive in captivity, you need to have very, very specific ways of feeding it. So these guys almost never drink water. You'll never see them drink water. And the issue is that almost all water, whether it's natural or from tap, has higher levels of iron. Well, they don't have good blood that can handle that kind of iron, and it actually gives them like kind of a I don't know what the name of it. It's like instead of an iron deficiency, it's like an excessive iron. They don't have a way for like to naturally flush the iron out of the water, and so it builds up in their system and causes huge problems. And so when in captivity, they get too much of that and they end up dying. Now, they understand that a lot better than they used to. And so there are a few instances in the last few years where Quetzals are being kept in captivity and are doing a little bit better, but it's exceptionally rare. But yeah, you're just wondering why. It's like, well, how do they drink like that? Well, they get all the water they need from their diet of fruits. They love fruit. They love to eat fruit. And there's a lot of, water in pretty much every fruit. And so they stay hydrated just through the fruit that they eat. So that's pretty neat. That's pretty neat. And oddly enough, one of their favorite foods is avocados. Nummy avocados. So I suppose maybe people are like, well, maybe the Quetzals wouldn't be endangered if they didn't just eat avocado toast all the time. But yeah, silly. But yeah, iron toxicity, not good for them. But the thing is, why are they so protected? Well, it's because they're very important to both Aztec and Mayan culture. We were talking about Quetzalcoatl earlier. Well, the Quetzalcoatl, the Mayan god, is directly inspired by the Quetzal bird. Quetzalcoatl, I don't know which name came first, but down there we have pictured the Quetzalcoatl, the serpent, like the serpent bird, and you can just look at the depictions of it. Wings near the front, and then long, long tail. And then the colors with the red breasts, something. It's like, yeah, you can absolutely see the inspiration there. And I could go into legends about the Quetzalcoatl in the folklore in the Aztec and Mayan civilizations. There's more than I have even time for, but I highly recommend looking it up. There's some great YouTube videos. There's some great articles out there. And yeah, really cool stuff. And Guatemala has decided to make the Quetzal their national bird. Yay! That's way better than a bald eagle. Bald eagles suck. Although, what's a national bird of Canada? It's the Canada Jay, right? Yeah, I believe it's Canada Jay.
I feel like I'm supposed to know this, but I do not.
I'm pretty sure it's a Canada Jay. Canadians picked a Corvid. That's a good pick. But the Quetzal, I mean, come on, if I was in Guatemala, that's the bird to pick. Perfect. So, yeah, very important bird in in those societies, both in the pre-colonization and post-colonization years. And so hopefully the reverence for this bird and the love for this bird will allow it to come around because, the endangered, we don't want to see this guy go away. They're wonderful, beautiful birds. Wonderful, beautiful birds.
Yeah. We don't have to be forced to make mechanical replicas of them.
Wouldn't be the same. But yeah, I recommend looking up some videos. There weren't any good short videos I could show, but there's lots of great videos of them. They got a great sound. But yeah, the Quetzal, I love the Quetzal. Great bird, pretty intelligent bird. Good family birds, and just absolutely stunningly beautiful. I love those tails. It's definitely form over function, but who cares? They seem to be doing all right for themselves. And plus, look at the fuzzy little heads and a little beak poking out. They're so cute. They're so beautiful. And yeah, I absolutely understand why they're revered. So my thoughts. This is a high-tier bird. One of my favorite birds I've covered. So thank you, Vesper, for picking it. I really had a lot of fun researching and talking about this wonderful bird.
Where on the tier list would you place this bird?
I would go A tier, because as we know, S tier is reserved only for corvids.
Oh.
So, pretty much as high up as a bird can be without being a corvid.
I see.
Yeah, they're great. I mean, they tick all the boxes. Beautiful, intelligent, good family. I would like to see maybe a little bit more of a community aspect. I would prefer if they lived in flocks rather than being solitary. But hey, birds gotta do what birds gotta do. Yeah, there's like a list of ways. It's like, how do I rate birds? It's like, all right, intelligence is important, visual appeal is important, uh, good raising of babies is important, good community is important, and interesting folklore is important, and reality. So yeah, they're like ticking all but like one of those boxes. So yeah, how can I not love the Quetzal? It's an easy bird to love. Yeah. Yeah.
I guess I really sympathize with its form over function idea, you know? Sometimes you gotta sacrifice a little to look good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You think it's easy to fly while carrying this twig? It's not, but I gotta have it. All right. Well, I think we said all we can say about the Quetzal, so we're gonna call this bird of the day done, and we're gonna head back on over to the studio.